To review where we left off, what starts all energy on Earth? Sun, which makes energy what kind of system? Open. It starts at the sun, so it's out of Earth, okay? And then who uses this solar energy? Plants or? And plants use the solar energy and convert it to what form of energy? Chemical. What's the chemical energy? Glucose, okay? What do they need besides sun to make glucose? Water and carbon dioxide. And they make glucose with oxygen, okay? So sun drives this reaction, as you see here. Carbon dioxide comes in, water comes into the leaf of a plant, light drives that reaction, and it produces carbohydrates or glucose and oxygen. What's the chemical formula for glucose? Good. All right. So bacteria is a little different because they do not have light. So these are areas like in the ocean where there's hydrothermal vents, and I have a picture there. So the driving force in this reaction is what? Heat. Good. And here's the actual chemical reaction. It's going to be the same. Think about it. What is that I'm showing you there a picture of? Sulfur is being emitted. What is that? Vent, a volcano. What's released during volcanic eruptions? Sulfur. What else? Carbon dioxide. So that you've got carbon dioxide, heat, and then you've got that sulfur compound. Let's call it a sulfur compound. We don't have to really worry about the hydrogen sulfide. So carbon dioxide plus, obviously, we're in the ocean, plus the sulfur compound produce what? Glucose plus another sulfur compound, okay? And if you want to put right above that arrow, heat. So what is the energy transformations that are taking place in chemosynthesis? Chemical and heat to chemical. Good, but it is chemical to chemical. You can't create energy, so it has to start from something.
So sulfur compounds go in and sulfur compounds go out?
Yep. They just get rearranged. You see them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we've got our glucose. Who's next?
Wait, so would that be like heat trapping?
No.
Heat doesn't go off?
Heat is always released. And what does the law of energy say? First law. If you say that on the test, you get it wrong. Like, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only. And what happens every time energy transforms? That's part of the second law. It diminishes, it loses its ability to perform, so it's lost as heat. Be careful with the diminishes, because remember, whatever you put in, you get out. It's just in different qualities, right? What else? Energy is lost as heat. Heat flows from hot to cold, and what happens to the molecules? They spread out. Entropy. Those are the three parts to the second law. All right. So my plants made glucose. For who? For themselves. To provide their energy source. We need that energy. So the first organisms to obtain the glucose are called what? Consumers. Okay? That's my first group of consumers. What's another word for consumers? Heterotrophs. What do we call primary consumers? What are they eating? Thank you. They're eating what? Plants. Good. And all that. So if you want to do an outline, Roman numeral 1 would be autotrophs. A and B would be plants or photosynthetic organisms, and B would be chemosynthetic organisms. And then this would be Roman numeral 2, and we've got a lot of different types of heterotrophs. This would be A, would be primary consumers, yes? If you're following the outline. Yeah, that's the definition of a consumer. So if you're following the outline, again, what would this be? B, okay? So if you want me to just restructure that, I don't mind. B is secondary, tertiary, quaternary, or second, third, fourth, fifth order consumers, okay? It doesn't matter because they're all what type of feeders? Carnivores. What do they eat? animals or meat. Good. So this would be C, and this would be D. Another type of consumer, that's what we're describing. Eat both plants and animals. Omnivores, good. And your best example. In one serving of food, we usually have both, right? And then you've got this other group of consumers that they can be herbivores, they can be carnivores, and they could be omnivores. There's no really direct category because they eat remains of organisms. What are they called? Scavengers, good. Of course, I had to add raccoons to that picture. E, and F, right? I mean, technically, you can make an outline however you want. You could have done Roman numeral 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. By rules of outlining, it's Roman numeral 1, letter A, number 1. But, all right, consumers, again, they could be herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, okay? They are consumers. What are these pictures showing you? Good. What do? Break down waste, and they return all the nutrients back into the ecosystem. Do you see how this unit is correlated with matter? Okay. We've got decomposers and that word, that nitrogen cycle, the detrivores. Now, the main difference, if you look at this picture, and I was going to tell you what are the main difference between decomposers and detrivores, what would you say? Good. Most decomposers are microscopic to a sense, except like fungi. That's a good one. Another thing is, more specific, detrivores are like what we call bottom dwellers. So on land, they're like earthworms, which live on soil, and beetles, they're like always deep down. And in the ocean, they would be what? Yeah, are bottom dwellers that feed off little particles of food. Crustaceans, good. Okay, so they sometimes don't necessarily recycle all nutrients back because they're technically consumers, whereas decomposers break down and release almost all organic matter back into the cycle. All right, so this is like another section. We finished. It's another section, but it's correlated. So every time an organism feeds off another organism, that's called a food chain. What's being transferred? Energy, good. A food chain, by definition, is a series of energy transformations. And it's always linear, which technically is probably non-existent because you never have this perfect line of a food chain. It's usually a food web, which is a network of food chains. Many organisms feed off a plant, and the organisms that feed off that plant might be eaten by several organisms. So that's where the web kicks in. Now, I'm going to say this because yesterday in somebody's presentation, they showed a food chain. You see these arrows? What do you think they represent? Energy transformation. Where you always want to draw your arrows in this direction because you're thinking a cow eats a plant, right? But it's not about who eats what. It's about how the energy gets transferred from one to the other. So make sure you make a note about in which direction arrows go to show energy transformations or a food chain, because what it's showing is a series of energy transformations. All right, what is this pyramid? Good, it's an energy pyramid. I mean, if I would have put it blank, maybe in your mind you think food pyramid, but that'll show you carbs, proteins, fats, right? This shows you what? Levels of energy, good. What does the shape represent? So if you look at the shape, what are you telling me?
There's a lot more energy in like the trees.
Good. So we know plants have more energy. Why? Because they've only undergone one transformation, from the sun to the plant. Then it has to go from the plant to the who? To the primary consumers, which are herbivores. So what I want you to know is this shape means loss of energy. And every time energy is lost, do you know how much is lost? 90% is lost. Only 10% is passed on. And it's lost as heat. All right, so let's break down this pyramid by everything we just did in these notes is going to be applied to this pyramid. So plants are my what? Plants are my producers. What's another word for a producer? Autotrophs. And Algae would be another form of producer, which is like a photosynthetic protist, okay? So that's another example. What's another producer? We got plants,
Is that bacteria?
bacteria. Now, this particular chain, bacteria wouldn't go there because we're not showing a transformation starting bacteria, but it could go there, okay? What type of energy is this? Huh? Chemical, okay? But we're gonna call it now more direct. We're gonna give it a number, and it's 1,000 units of energy. And let's be more specific here. Tell me a unit of energy I could use here. What do you commonly use? You could use joules. Is that what you commonly use? Calories, right? What else? Units of energy. Watts, okay. So we're going to become familiar with all of those. Well, you can use basically for this joules and calories, okay? All right, so if producers, which are, which are plants or autotrophs, have 1,000 units of energy, how much are my second level going to get? 100, okay? And that's a grasshopper, which is called what? Primary consumer, or all of these. So let's go like this. I like that you said that. Let's go like this and call all of these heterotrophs, right? Heteros or slash consumers. So we're labeling this whole pyramid. And what did you say they are? Herbivores. Good. Everything, you can actually put the word autotroph here then, right? Because that's the term missing. Okay. All right, so we've got our primary consumers, in this case, grasshopper or mice. What's next? Secondary consumers, which are what? Carnivores. I'm introducing you to another word. They're primary carnivores. Why are they primary? They're first level, okay? How many units of energy? 10. Then we've got what? Second what? Secondary what? Carnivore. Third order. Third order. I'll pause. I told you, you got primary consumers here, secondary consumers here, and here you got your third order consumer. 1 unit of energy, but they're also the second order carnivore. In an energy pyramid or a food chain, it's always producer first, plant eaters or primary consumers next, and the rest are carnivores. Where would a decomposer go on here? Why? Actually, who agrees with her? She said the top.
Actually, no, wouldn't it go anywhere?
It would go anywhere. Anywhere there's dying organisms or waste. That's where decomposers go, okay? How about omnivores?
They're kind of like all of it because they take it all.
They're kind of nowhere. Because if they're eating plants, what are they? Primary consumers or herbivores. If they're eating meat, where are they? Above the herbivores, okay? Does that make sense? Okay.